Okay, let's start with a question that has literally haunted philosophers, driven entire empires, and basically shaped our modern world. Can money really buy everything? I mean, you look around today and you see wealth opening doors that seem completely bolted shut for the rest of us. We see sovereign wealth funds buying up entire city blocks in London, or billionaires essentially drafting space law through their private aerospace monopolies. The sheer scale of modern capital makes it feel like there is absolutely no boundary it can't cross. But is there a hard limit?
Think about the absolute peak of purchasing power for a second. With enough capital, you aren't just buying luxury cars or, a private island to escape the world. You are buying structural influence. We live in an era where mega corporations routinely employ more lobbyists than there are sitting lawmakers. We're talking about international conglomerates that can effectively restructure a developing nation's debt just to secure exclusive mining rights. When wealth operates at that kind of geopolitical scale, it feels almost omnipotent, right? It feels like this universal key to literally every lock in human existence. But today, we are going to challenge that exact assumption. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are asking a massive, profound question. Can economics buy everything? We're going to explore the hidden power of money, how it drives global markets, and how it ultimately shapes human life. And by the end of our time together, we're going to uncover a totally counterintuitive economic principle about the absolute limits of wealth. It's a concept that might just completely change the way you view global markets and, honestly, your own wallet. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The hidden power of money. Before we can talk about the limits of wealth, we really need to understand the playing field. Money isn't just paper, and it isn't just digital numbers on a screen. It's the fundamental energy source of our entire society. In economics, it's not just about boring math or distant stock markets. It's the study of how we allocate scarcity. It's this invisible scaffolding that shapes all human life and our systems. Think about how massive financial forces recently just bought out entire professional golf leagues. That wasn't merely a sports transaction. That was a raw demonstration of energy allocation on a global scale. Every single time a new technology drops or a supply chain shifts, you are witnessing this massive interconnected web of economic energy actively molding our reality. Moving on to Section 2, Markets, Growth, and Crises.
So how do those hidden forces actually play out in the real world? Well, it happens through these deeply interconnected macroeconomic levers, things like inflation, recession, and unemployment. These aren't just isolated runs of bad luck. They are fundamentally tied together in this really delicate balancing act. Take, for instance, the historical dynamic where central banks have to aggressively hike interest rates to crush runaway inflation. By purposefully making money more expensive to borrow, they cool down the economy. But that historically triggers a rise in unemployment. It's a brutal mechanical lever. Fixing one crisis very often requires purposefully inducing another one, and ordinary people get caught right in the crossfire of this massive systemic trade-off. And this brilliantly illustrates that whole roller coaster. It's a constant friction that causes the perpetual swing of the global market. On one hand, you have economic growth, which we measure in GDP. That's the engine of capitalism roaring forward, fueled by credit and innovation. But here's the catch. Capitalism is inherently unstable. That exact same credit that fuels growth eventually creates debt bubbles, which inevitably pulls the entire system into economic decline or a recession. The history of global finance is literally just the history of the business cycle. It's the story of institutions desperately trying to navigate between these two extremes, trying to maximize the good times while softening those destructive, yet completely unavoidable, periods of decline. All right, Section 3, Billionaires and the AI Future. If we want to understand where the modern economy is heading, we have to look at its primary architects. The economics of modern billionaires is best understood as a trinity of forces that just continually feed into one another. First, it starts with capital. That's the raw financial fuel. They leverage that capital to fund massive technological innovation. But here's the critical pivot. That innovation directly translates into global power. I mean, we've seen tech titans use software profits to build private satellite internet networks. Suddenly, a private individual controls communications infrastructure that sovereign militaries actually rely on. Capital builds the tech, and the tech effectively bypasses traditional nation-states, granting unprecedented geopolitical power. And right now, all of that capital, that innovation, and that power is converging on one singular horizon: the age of artificial intelligence. AI is not just some new software update. It is a total economic paradigm shift.
It's the deployment of capital to replace human labor on a cognitive level. The architects directing this AI economy are fundamentally writing the rules for the future of productivity itself. We're looking at a future of hyperproductivity, where a massive monopolization of data could permanently alter how global markets function. It has the potential to displace huge swaths of the labor force while simultaneously concentrating unprecedented wealth right into the hands of those who own the underlying models. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds, why nations succeed or fail. So, if we take a step back and look at the real widescreen view of the globe, zooming out from individuals to entire countries, we have to ask, why is there such a massive disparity in global wealth? The divide between rich and poor nations actually isn't merely about geography or natural resources. It's largely about institutions. Rich countries typically succeed because they've built inclusive economic institutions, legal frameworks that protect property rights, enforce contracts, and actually incentivize their citizens to innovate. They perfectly harness that trinity of capital, innovation, and influence. On the flip side, poor countries often remain trapped in stagnation due to extractive institutions. These are systems designed by ruling elites to funnel resources strictly to themselves, which actively stifles broader economic growth and leaves their populations fundamentally stranded.
Which brings us to Section 5, what money cannot buy.
So far, we've seen the incredible, undeniable power of wealth. It dictates the success of entire nations and is literally coding the future of human labor. But it's time to look at where this illusion of omnipotence shatters. Here's the big question. Can wealth actually create happiness, or does it only buy comfort? It's a distinction that completely redefines how we should view our own financial optimization. Money is arguably the greatest tool ever invented for eliminating the friction of daily life. But does removing friction automatically equal a fulfilled human existence? To answer that, we actually have to view the intangible through an economic lens, specifically the concept of diminishing marginal utility. Look, yes, the first surge of wealth changes your life entirely. Going from poverty to financial security eliminates massive amounts of stress. It absolutely buys comfort, luxury, and influence. But the utility of every dollar after that, it starts to plummet. Going from $10 million to $100 million honestly just adds zeros to a spreadsheet. It yields diminishing returns on actual human fulfillment. It cannot buy genuine love. Sure, it can buy a world-class surgical team, but it cannot guarantee your cellular health. And it absolutely cannot manufacture genuine trust from another human being. And this leads us directly to the hardest constraint in all of economics. Capital is theoretical, right? It can compound indefinitely in financial markets, but biological time cannot. The most powerful architects of our economy can accumulate infinite global influence, but they literally cannot buy a single extra second of time. You can buy the hospital, but you cannot buy the heartbeat. Time remains the ultimate, unforgiving equalizer. No matter how much the global markets grow, no matter how advanced the AI economy becomes, our time is governed by the laws of physics, not the laws of finance. That is the ultimate limitation of macroeconomic theory. GDP can measure our transactions, algorithms can optimize our labor, and financial incentives can build empires. But the human condition remains the final, unpurchasable frontier. Understanding exactly where the power of capital ends, that is the greatest lesson in economics. Recognizing this boundary condition is the secret to actually mastering economics in your own life, rather than letting it master you. You really have to know what you are truly optimizing for. If this explainer changed your perspective today, and if you want to keep exploring the hidden forces that shape our world, make sure you subscribe. We are going to be continually unpacking these massive topics, from deep dives into economics and global markets, all the way to finance, business, and the very future of humanity. So whether you are managing a billionaire's portfolio or just budgeting your next paycheck, you have to ask yourself, where does the true power of your wealth end? Take a look at your own life this week. See exactly where you are allocating your most precious resources and figure out what you are really trying to buy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.